Hi, I'm Ryan Cunningham with DIY Painting Tips, and in today's video, we're going to show you how to paint a wall. So let's get to it. In our last video, we talked about cutting in some ceilings, so we did that real quick so you can see that got started here. But typically the first step in painting walls is we're going to go in and clean the walls, wash the walls, and sand the walls. All right, so the first step is we need to prep the walls. On these walls, this is a room with two twins, and they like to do artwork. So first we're going to wash it down, and most of these markers should be washable kids markers. So hopefully a little bit of this comes off. And next we're going to sand the walls down to knock off any high spots, smooth out a few patches we did, and just get them all ready for paint. After we're done washing the wall, we're going to go and sand the entire wall with the sanding sponge. The purpose of sanding is purely just to smooth out any rough areas on the wall, any high things, little hairs left in the old finish, smooth out any patches we have on. I'm not going to spend too long, really just 2 or 3 minutes sanding each wall in the room. So most rooms we paint might have a little spot of marker, and a little bit of Kills is going to take care of that. This one's a little bit bigger, but we're still just going to go with the spray can of Kills. The reason we're going to do that is most of the marker washed off, decently well. But this is obviously a little bit of permanent marker, and I don't want that bleeding through onto my top coat. So little Kills Original in the spray can works wonderful for this, and it's just going to seal this so that it doesn't come through the top coat. We're not looking for perfect. I don't need to be able to not see through this. If I can see through it, that's perfectly fine. I'm not looking for complete coverage on this. Just a really light coat will actually seal it in great. Then once this dries, we're actually going to sand this down just to make sure it's smooth and doesn't leave a rough patch on our walls when we paint the top coat. Just remember, this primer isn't meant to make it so you can't see this. It could be completely clear and still seal it just fine. We just want it sealed so that it doesn't bleed through on our top coat. Okay, so we've washed the wall. We lightly sanded everything. We shot a little bit of Kills. This was a lot of artwork on here, so it was actually quite a bit of Kills. But typically it's a couple spots, so typically the can works beautifully. This is probably a little excessive, but that's just fine. Now we're going to go ahead and tape the trim. So a little trick I like to use is if I'm taping more than a room, say you're painting your whole house and you're going to tape it all at once, as I'm taping, I use my left hand to press that tape as I go. I'm going to be pressing with this hand the whole time, and I've actually worn my fingernails right off before, and it hurts like a dickens. So I like to actually wrap my fingers with a little bit of tape. This actually helps give me a bigger point on my fingers and helps me press that tape in better without ruining my fingers. So to get a good, nice straight line of tape, we want one piece of tape. We don't want to be ripping a bunch of little ones. We're going to get this started in the corner, and we're just eyeballing the corner to get us started for about 2 or 3 feet here. And as long as we keep the tape flat against the wall, we have a much better chance of getting a nice straight tape line. Now, as I pull it up, I've got my left hand here, I'm going to place that on the tape so it stays in place. I'm going to pull a little bit of tape out. I'm going to roll it backwards so that sticky side comes down. I'm going to keep the tape against the wall, just slide it down. I'm going to pull it out, roll it backwards, slide it down. This is going to give you a perfect tape line, and with a little bit of practice, you can get really fast at brushing tape rooms in a few minutes compared to 30, 40. When I get to the opposite corner, just have to work it in there best you can. I like to have a short mud knife ready so I can get a nice clean rip right in the corner. I like to go back over with my mud knife and just press that inside corner down to make sure that it's nice and tight, just in case my fingers didn't get in there perfectly. And I'm just going to run that knife along the edge of the tape to make sure it's pressed down so that no paint seeps under that tape and gets on my trim. As I discussed in our video about cutting in ceilings, I do not tape the tops of windows or doors. No one's ever gonna have their head up there. So I actually just cut them in by hand. I think it's faster, it saves me tape. Now everything's ready for cutting in. When we cut in, we wanna cut in the ceiling. We also wanna cut in all the trim, go around the outlets. Basically the brush work is for everywhere that we can't get our 9-inch roller. So I'm gonna go ahead and brush around this window, and I wanna go out about 3-4 inches so that my roller doesn't have to come too close to the window. We're using here today is their Ultra matte finish. That's it. You have a light up there? When I'm cutting in ceilings, I like to brush down about 6 inches. That gives me enough room when I'm rolling out the wall that I don't have to get too close to the ceiling and risk bumping that ceiling with my roller. I also like to fill in this remaining couple of inches above windows. It's just quicker and easier than getting my roller up there. When I'm cutting in a ceiling, I like to hold it kind of like a pencil, only with even more fingers, as close to the bristles as possible. That gives me as much control as I can possibly have. Rather than holding it on the handle in any way, shape, or form, doesn't give me quite as much control over my cut lines. And when I come into a corner, I like to take my brush in here and brush out about 1.5 to 2 inches in each corner. That allows me to roll up to about 1/2 inch of either edge of the corner with my roller. Once I've got my ceilings cut in, my windows cut in, my corners cut in, the last bit is to go around the baseboard and the outlets and cut in around those as well. I do the same thing I do around the ceiling. I try to do about 6 inches up from the tape. And when my brush is wet, I don't want to shove that right down into my tape. I want to give it the best chance for the tape to give me a sharp line as possible. So I will actually brush out just above that tape line to get most of my paint spread out, and then I'll go down to the tape line. That just ensures that I'm not getting too much paint down onto the tape. And then even if the paint does peel up a little as it gets wet, which some of these cheaper tapes do, there's not enough paint left on your brush to really shove paint under there. So one of the last steps on painting walls is we're going to roll out the wall. There's a few things I want to talk about here. A good roller frame is worth your investment. A Worcester is my absolute favorite, these green roller frames. They just roll nice and yeah, they last forever. So the next thing on here is the roller cover. The roller cover makes a huge difference in your painting. A good roller cover can save you lots of time on a big painting project, where a bad roller cover can just be your nemesis on the entire project and you'd be cursing it the whole time. Every new roller is going to have a bunch of spare lint on it. Make sure to wipe that lint off, otherwise it ends up in your paint. I like to use a half inch nap. That's how fluffy basically the roller is. For speed painting, a lot of guys, a lot of professional painters use 3/4 inch. It's very easy to get sloppy on 3/4 inch. If you're not experienced with a roller at all, 3/8 is a little bit slower, but it helps you stay under control. And then these Purdy white doves are kind of expensive, but if you wash them out and keep them, this one roller, and by expensive I mean like $6, $7, $8, somewhere in there. These rollers will last you a long time and they're absolutely worth the money. They leave a beautiful texture on your wall and they hold a lot of paint and they're just smooth. They're wonderful. So we're gonna go ahead and throw that on our Worcester roller frame. And then the other thing I like to do is if you paint without an extension pole, you're reaching up, you're bending over, and it doesn't seem like much, but finish one room and you're going to be exhausted. Do a whole house and it's really taxing on your body. So I like to use a 2 to 4 foot extension pole. And just by switching to this simple pole, even at its shortest, I eliminate the movement of my body. And if I extend it out, I can stand back and I can hit the top of the wall all the way to the bottom of the wall, very minimal movement of my body, just some arm work. Compare that to the amount of work that this is doing an entire house, and it's drastic. So I always recommend an extension pole. It's just going to save you. It's going to save your back. It's going to save your energy. It's going to make painting not as bad of a job. And then, as we showed before, we're still using the Bear Ultra. Last thing I should point out is I like to use the handy paint buckets or handy paint trays. They're extra wide. They hold about a gallon of paint almost. And they have a nice magnet to hold your brush in, which is kind of fantastic. I don't have a brush set up right now. I don't need one. First thing I'm going to do is make sure that my roller is really saturated. Just let that paint soak in for a little bit. I'm going to just tap the paint. One thing I always tell my painters to do is to never get paint onto the actual frame on the ends. What that'll cause is the paint will start coming down here and then it'll flick off while you're rolling from the centripetal force of the roller going around, and it'll leave lines up and down your painting and it becomes a pain in the butt. So when I'm dipping in my tray, I'm just tapping the paint in the bottom of the tray, just barely tapping it so it keeps hitting the edge and soaking the whole thing and soaking in. All right, now I'm gonna start in the corner, right where we used our brush earlier. I'm just gonna work out this first dip really good. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other corner here. I'm just going to do long strokes all the way from floor to ceiling, floor to ceiling, floor to ceiling. As you can see, this 1/2 inch nap roller with an extension pole makes really short work of this kind of painting. Under the window, I'm going to shorten my extension pole a little bit. Just get down in here a little more. As you can see from when we spot primed all that marker earlier, none of it is bleeding through, which is exactly what we wanted. If you're wondering how much paint or how long a project like this should take, or even what you could expect to pay a professional painting contractor, head on over to DIYpaintingtips.com. We have a calculator in there that'll tell you for your interior painting, your exterior painting, and even kitchen cabinet painting, one, how long it should take the average DIYer, two, how many gallons you're gonna need, and how much money you can expect to spend, and three, it'll tell you what should be a good baseline idea for how much a professional painter would charge you, which is all very useful information. Kind of gives you an idea of what to expect when that painter comes over to your house. There we go. Now we're gonna let this dry. It's a humid summer day here in Minnesota, so this is gonna dry really slow. We got the AC on, so hopefully that speeds it up a little bit. But it's getting late in the day. May dry today, may not, so see you tomorrow. All right, well my audio cut out earlier while I was rolling on the second coat, but I just wanted to reiterate that sanding in between coats, if you prep the wall good and you sanded the wall down good before your first coat, typically sanding between coats just isn't necessary. I rarely do it unless there's a reason for it. Maybe I didn't prep well enough on the first coat, probably not. Or if some fuzzies from the roller got into the first coat, that's a good reason. So we're just gonna pull the tape and wrap this job up. So thanks for joining us. Hope you learned something. Make sure to click the like button and subscribe for future DIY videos. See you next time.